Hello, welcome to the channel 12-Step Guide with Troy O. Today we're going to do step 8 in the Alcoholics Anonymous book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Last video, we began step 8 in the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. Now we encountered some difficulty. The Big Book came out in 1939. Bill dealt with step 8 and 9 together in about 8+ pages. I only want to cover step 8. So that required me to read just the first paragraph. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the step book in between that writing. It came out in 1952 because I really want Bill's message in its entirety to come through loud and clear for the person trying to really understand this step and do this step. Now, if you're truly trying to do this step today, you're going to need your original list, all of it, from step 4. Step 8 is interesting. If you were looking at all 12 steps and I could turn a light on under the question, what step would step 8 show up in? All the steps, where would it show up? I turn the light on and you'd find step 8 will show up in step 4. It will certainly show up in step 8. It's going to also show up in step 9. And it's going to show up in step 10. Now, when I read the material, we're going to hear from Bill on that. But I want you to have an advanced understanding of the significance of this step, this making a list. So what is step 8? If you're just coming on for the first time today, there's things you won't understand. The earlier videos will cover it. Step 8 is begun in step 4, for example. So what is step 8? Made a list of all persons we had harmed, comma, and I'm emphasizing that comma because there's 2 parts to step 8. So the second part, and became willing to make amends to them all. Last video, largely, we covered, made a list of all persons we had harmed. Today, we're still covering that, but it's like that comma, like there's missing information there that we're filling in now. Bill's filling it in the later writings. We know that he also, in the step book, completed that step 4 list. And we're going to see some of that today. And what's important about how sometimes step 8 and 9 are referred together, after this video, then we're going to start on the second half of step 8 while considering also step 9. And first, considering last video, we learned that we already had a list. And let's say that was pre-step 5, before step 5. We had our first look at our step 8 list. Today we're going to cover post step 5. After we have done step 5, we're now going to come back to that original list. And I'll get into that more today as we read and understand how Bill did this and why he did it this way. And just for clarity, in Bill's story in the big book, I identified this as track B or track 2. So in the book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Steps 8 and 9 are concerned with personal relations. Let's define that a little bit. Relating ourselves and others to others on a personal level, affecting us or another on a personal level. And where have we been introduced to this? Step 4, resentment list, right? Column 3, also the fear and sex conduct list. Back to the reading. First, we take a look backward and try to discover where we have been at fault. So we know this is column 4, resentment list, and all of column 5. But he says first. That first represents step 8. Next, this next refers to step 9. We make a vigorous, a strong attempt to repair the damage we have done. And third refers to step 10. Having thus cleaned away the debris of the past, we consider how, with our newfound knowledge of ourselves, this previously unknown knowledge, we may develop the best possible relations with every human being we know. And so that step 10, this third, would be to continue to take personal inventory, and when wrong, promptly admitted it. So step 10 is a clean offshoot of step 8 and 9 after we cleared away that debris, and at any time today, whether you're 2 days in the program or 30 years in the program, continue to take personal inventory. Don't let things get worse, right? We're trying to change and grow and develop and clear away the wreckage, behave differently, better. This is a very large order. It is a task which we may perform with increasing skill, but never really finish. It's a lifetime effort. I'm never going to do it perfectly. Learning how to live in the greatest peace, partnership, and brotherhood with all men and women of whatever description is a moving and fascinating adventure. Fascinating adventure, an interesting exploration that comes with risk. Every AA has found that he can make little headway, little progress in this new adventure of living until he first backtracks and really makes an accurate, a correct, and unsparing survey without restriction of the human wreckage, the damage he has left in his wake. What's a wake? A boat comes trashing through and leaves all these waves, and you're in a little raft or something and trashing around because of it. A wake, right? That damage left behind. To a degree, he has already done this when taking moral inventory. So that establishes this is happening separate of that. We've already taken that inventory. That's pre step 5. Now we're at post step 5. We're after step 5. We're back at our list, but we're taking an advanced look, and we'll get into that some more. But now the time has come when he ought to redouble his efforts. Now we're getting into it. We are redoubling our efforts. Whatever we did before, we're not as vulnerable now. We took a good look at that list and we wrote it out and understood it and talked it out with our sponsor. And time has passed, and now we're coming back to that list. We're not making a resentment list anymore. Now we're looking at the list, the step 8 portion of that list, and trying to understand that better. There's a real reason Bill has done this in this way, so that we're not so sensitive. We need to understand it first. It isn't God just knows me, is going to take all this away. We're going to participate. We need to understand it, in my humble opinion. So we ought to redouble our efforts to work harder to refine, to see how many people he has hurt and in what ways. So we're going back and really trying to see that list differently now. We're not building it now, we're processing it now in a different way. This reopening of emotional wounds, some old, some perhaps forgotten, and some still painfully festering. They're eating at us or at somebody else. Will at first look like a purposeless and pointless piece of surgery. We don't want to. Here's a clue. If you wait long enough, it becomes even more pointless. Wait 3 or 4 years before even looking at your list. Why have to say amends to anybody, right? You know why? Because maybe you relapse and you drink again. There's a lot of that going around because this isn't taken serious enough, or people aren't encouraged enough, or don't understand it enough, or just whatever the case is. Here's how to do it. You choose. Do you want to be sober? Or do you want to relapse? Do you want to be happy? It's your choice. But if a willing start is made, now page 78, then the great advantages, the gain or benefit of doing this will so quickly reveal themselves that the pain will be lessened as one obstacle, one blockage after another melts away. These obstacles, this blockage, however, are very real. The first, and one of the most difficult, has to do with forgiveness, letting go of bad feelings. The moment we ponder, the moment we think about a twisted or broken relationship with another person, our emotions go on the defensive. Maybe we begin to self-justify, throw up defenses. To escape looking at the wrongs we have done another, we resentfully, that's angrily or bitterly, focus on the wrong he has done us. This is especially true if he has, in fact, behaved badly at all. Maybe we created it, maybe we invented it. Triumphantly, with a sense of victory, we seize upon his misbehavior as the perfect excuse for minimizing or forgetting our own. I want to broaden this out for a minute. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, the original version. Maybe you're looking at this and trying to understand it from a victim perspective. Maybe there's another program, maybe other pains. Maybe you can't quite relate to this, or the concept confuses you because there's other factors. Look, there was other factors in my life as a youth that didn't apply to this. So I understand those factors. So don't get confused by it. What fits, what doesn't? If this doesn't fit, something does. You don't get to skate. If you were affected and you're trying to recover whatever that pain is, wherever it comes from, understanding those avenues better, I just wanted to offer that up. I'm sensitive to that. There's different parts of me. There's parts of me that did damage. There's parts of me that were damaged. And there's parts of me that did damage because of the damage. Maybe they're some of the reasons why I drank the way I did, for example. Alrighty then, let's move on. So anyway, that was about minimizing your behavior. You don't enter anything down on paper. You just self-justify. You don't care, or you don't want to care, or it hurts too much. You don't want to look back. Whatever the case is, until you start really putting this stuff down on paper and trying to unlock it and understand it, whatever the direction is, the energy comes from somewhere. Track the energy. So right here, we need to fetch ourselves up sharply. So what's that mean, fetch ourselves up sharply? To remember why we're doing this. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to get sober? Are you doing it to feel better? No, you're just doing it for kicks. Why are you doing it? Typically, it hurts bad enough often somehow to achieve a level of recovery and a happier life. It doesn't make much sense when a real tosspot calls a kettle black. So what's he saying here? Because why are you doing this, looking at this list or not, or why are you behaving a certain way? But there's a way out and a right way to do it. And in this case, it's suggestion. It doesn't really make much sense for a drunk or heavy drinker or an asshole to call the other one a drunk drinker or asshole. I just one calling the other. There's no value there. That's not the way out, for example. Let's remember that alcoholics are not the only ones bedeviled. They're not the only ones tormented by sick emotions. Moreover, it is usually a fact that our behavior when drinking has aggravated and brought out the defects of others. We antagonize them. We can piss people off, find that magic button, and we've repeatedly strained the patience of our best friends to a snapping point and have brought out the very worst in those who didn't think much of us to begin with. In many instances, we are really dealing with fellow sufferers, people whose woes, whose troubles or issues we have increased. If we are now about to ask forgiveness for ourselves, because remember, this is making a list of people we had harmed with the concept that maybe we're going to go seek forgiveness. Why shouldn't we start out by forgiving them, one and all? And how does that work? Are we making a deal, a bargain with them, or is it unannounced unless asked? That's a question you might need to visit, but finding forgiveness, understanding, seeing others. Maybe it isn't a requirement that you get their forgiveness when you're seeking it. Because at the end of the day, maybe you're the one that seeks to be free of that pain. When listing the people we have harmed, Most of us hit another solid obstacle. We got a pretty severe shock when we realized that we were preparing to make a face to face admission of our wretched, our very bad conduct to those we had hurt. Because that ain't fun, right? And this is going to place where he's talking about this next statement pre step 5 or post step 5. It had been embarrassing enough when in confidence we had admitted these things to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. Now we know that to be step 5. But the prospect, the likelihood of actually visiting or even writing the people concerned now overwhelmed us. Maybe we had strong and confusing emotions around it, especially when we remembered in what poor favor, the approval of us, we stood with most of them. There were cases, too, where we had damaged others who were still happily unaware of being hurt. Why we cried, shouldn't bygones be bygones? Why shouldn't we leave the past in the past? Why do we have to think of these people at all? These were some of the ways in which fear conspired with pride. Here's an example. Step 4, column 4 of your fear list. Fear conspiring with pride. Here's an example. He's trying to build on that earlier list and really shed some lights on some of this stuff that he didn't have an opportunity to do in the big book. So fear conspired with pride to hinder, to obstruct our making a list of all the people we had harmed. Now you have a second opportunity in case something stood in the way the first time. Now I had made the point when Bill did his first list in treatment, it was a soft survey. He had drank a lot of years and burned a lot of people, and I assure you, they didn't all make the list. You'd be lucky to remember them all. But there's a time afterward, and we're going to get into that more. What I'm saying here, that in the way I taught the original, was that slower version. It's my hope that treatment centers will pick up that briefer version and educate on how to do it so people leave treatment feeling like they've done a 4th and 5th step. And then an understanding also that they can build on that in that deeper list, that as you evolve and you come back and you really build on that more because in treatment you wouldn't have been making amends to people. As you're building on this making amends is a big deal towards sobriety, towards those 9-step promises. Now we'll get an idea why those promises are going to start happening. We're going to earn those. It might be helpful to point out, make your list first. Understand your list first. Understand what part you played in it. And largely right now, we're not really at the developing willingness phase. That doesn't mean it's not happening in the background. It doesn't mean an opportunity doesn't arise, but largely for this deeper, longer stuff, understanding it, it's very important that we understand it first. And we'll have an opportunity to then look at willingness, but that's not really yet here. Back to the reading, page 79. Some of us, though, tripped over a very different snag. We clung to the claim that when drinking, we never hurt anybody but ourselves. Our families didn't suffer because we always paid the bills and seldom drank at home. Our business associates didn't suffer because we were usually on the job. Our reputations hadn't suffered because we were certain few knew of our drinking. Did a good job of hiding it, or thought you did anyway. Those who did would sometimes assure us that, after all, a lively bender was only a good man's fault. Down at the bar, you could definitely get that assurance. What real harm, therefore, had we done? No more, surely, than we could easily mend with a few casual apologies. This attitude, of course, is the end result of purposeful forgetting, denial, or to deny or minimize your behavior so as to relieve oneself of the pain or guilt, bad outcome you played a part in. There's a nice, clean way to make it so that we've done nothing wrong and let enough time go by and burn off all your friends, maybe, and sever any decent connections, simply deny what's been going on. How about you want to stop drinking, stop drugging, stop behaving strangely, improve your life? How about you put it all down on paper and you unlock it that way? Let the truth tell its own story. So, purposeful forgetting. It is an attitude which can only be changed by a deep and honest search of our motives and actions. So, this underlying cause of behavior or actions. Though in some cases we cannot make restitution to settle some form of debt at all, and in some cases action ought to be deferred. For some reason, action should be delayed. Maybe some amends aren't timely or shouldn't happen for some reason. We should, nevertheless, we should still make an accurate and really exhaustive survey of our past life as it has affected other people. In many instances, we shall find that though the harm done others has not been great, the emotional harm we have done ourselves has. Somehow, we have damaged ourselves. And that's important. If we can't fix ourselves, how can we be there for anyone else in a credible, stable manner? Very deep, sometimes quite forgotten, very damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness. Somehow, right at the under that level, maybe we're very angry, anxiety, unpleasant, moody. The list goes on and on. At the time of these occurrences, they may actually have given our emotions violent twists, which have since discolored our personalities and altered our lives for the worst. So, whenever these occurrences were, maybe, I'll use some examples: war, an assault, prank gone wrong, excessive impairment, things that you did. Uh, Maybe you feel like you're dressed for battle while attending a child's birthday party. I grew up feeling like I was in a prisoner of war camp, for example. Um, but whatever happened, there's times, and whatever in this times that we may have been affected sharply, and it's really altered who we are or were, and we don't want to see it, can't see it. There's a way to see it. There's a way to get sober and stay sober. While the purpose of making restitution to resolve, restore, pay back debt, while the purpose of making restitution to others is paramount, leading in its importance, it is equally necessary that we extract, that we learn from an examination of our personal relations. Step 4, resentment list, column 3. Every bit of information about ourselves and our fundamental difficulties, our core or basic difficulties. So we're trying to, in addition to this making amends, we're trying to understand ourselves that we can. So these whatever happened in these personal relationships, whatever drove that, what can we learn about that, about ourselves? The more we understand and know about ourselves, the more we understand what happened, and if we like the path we're on, or what path we would like to be on. It's our choice if we want it to be. If you're not making the decision, somebody's making them for you, or something. Alcohol and drugs have made plenty of decisions for plenty of people. Since defective, failed relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, we didn't just born and start drinking, didn't know anybody, and the success of something has gone wrong, and it has to do largely also with other people. That's the message. So, since defective relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, including our alcoholism, no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. Calm, thoughtful reflection upon personal relations can deepen our insight, deepen our intuition, our perception, intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Deepen our insight. We can go far beyond those things which were superficially wrong, surface. In the 12-step meetings, that's a great place to continue to deal with that kind of stuff at the surface, that to try to keep peeling that away and addressing that stuff. A lot of living in the moment, the daily stuff, but this deeper stuff, rarely is that stuff being uncovered in the meeting. It isn't necessarily the appropriate place. You're not doing your step 8 list and declaring it in a meeting. That's happening with a sponsor. That's happening at home. That's happening in different types of environments, much more in your control with a single individual or a counselor or a clergy or another person in the church, a nun, for example, or a friend, or wherever and you might be, and whoever you might find helpful to assist in processing this information with you. We can go far beyond those things which were superficially wrong with us to see those flaws, because this is what we're looking for now, to see those flaws which were basic, flaws which sometimes were responsible for the whole pattern of our lives. Thoroughness, in depth, we have found will pay and pay handsomely. In some cases, maybe the core driver isn't that complicated once we can get there and see it. And we just keep building on it and building on it and throw alcohol in or drugs or bad decisions and bad behaviors and bringing others into our lives, maybe that confuse it more in this ongoing process that we start in tying the knot and taking a look and understanding what's really driving this stuff. Because you know what? I had more than enough. I had more than enough, I assure you, when it was time. And there's a process. It's your choice. We're going to now, in this next paragraph, get into a definition of harm defined. And he's going to use the word instincts inclusion. I just want to entertain one example out of many. Let's imagine you're a man and you were told, oh, men don't cry, men shouldn't cry, right? Whatever the reason is that somebody, whatever they went through to impress that upon you and you buy into it. Well, imagine that men don't cry as an instinct in collision because you believe it. Oh, alcohol, if you need permission to cry, alcohol do that for you. So maybe you just give yourself permission if that's what needs to happen as a release, for example. Anyway, let's see how we do here. We might next ask ourselves what we mean when we say that we have harmed other people. What kinds of harm do people do one another anyway? To define the word harm in a practical way, in a workable way, something we can work with, we might call it the result of instincts in collision. So I use just one example, which cause physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual damage to people. So the example I used on men don't cry, well, it's going to come out somehow, I assure you. There's many other examples, and that's just one. Don't limit it to that. If our tempers are consistently bad, we arouse anger in others. Because you like being around someone with a bad temper. If we lie or cheat, we deprive others not only of their worldly goods, but of their emotional security. Step 4, resentment list, column 3. Their emotional security and peace of mind. We really issue them an invitation to be contemptuous, to be snotty towards us, maybe towards the whole group, to everybody you piss them off enough, and vengeful. That's bitter. If our sex conduct is selfish, step 4, sex list, column 2, we may excite jealousy. Step 4, sex, column 4. These are examples. He's trying to help you with some examples to understand your step 4 lists. Now remember, this come out in 52. He's had some real time to figure this stuff, work it out, inject it back in, and that's what I'm trying to do. We're working on that list, how the intended flow to get Bill's message to you, his full understanding. For those that truly want recovery, that want to work the steps as a real way to work them. So we may excite jealousy, misery, and strong desire to retaliate in kind. These people want to attack, hit back, hurt us, because we've truly potentially provoked them in quite bizarre ways sometimes. page 81 at the top. Such gross, bad misbehavior is not by any means a full catalog of the harms we do. Let us think of some of the subtler ones which can sometimes be quite as damaging. That subtler, hidden, hidden better. Regardless of what 12-step program we're in, somebody's been affected. If we're affected, shit rolls downhill sometimes, and what's happened there. So, subtler ones which can sometimes be quite as damaging. Suppose that in our family lives we happen to be miserly, cheap, irresponsible, callous. That's kind of cruel. Or cold. Suppose that we are irritable, critical, impatient, and humorless. Suppose we lavish attention upon one member of the family and neglect the others. What happens when we try to dominate, to rule over? Yes, sir, the whole family, either by rule of iron, physical assaults, or by a constant outpouring of minute directions for just how their lives should be lived from hour to hour. Critical, picayune, just. Or suppose you get sober. Suddenly you're available and then you do it. And man, does it really piss them off. The kids, everybody's resentful. Suddenly you're handy and going to help everybody understand how to run their lives when you've been quite absent. It's a pretty common thing from my historical experience. What happens when we wallow, we wade through in depression, self-pity oozing, we're feeling sorry for ourselves, but it's oozing from every pore and inflict out upon those about us. It can happen, even victims. I get there's been some serious pain out there, but you can be involved with others and it can be difficult for them to see that. And I understand that that's pain and there's a way out. And some of those people that care for you could help you. And it might be you understanding how and helping them understanding how so that they can help you. Such a roster, a list of harms done others, the kind that makes daily living with us as practicing alcoholics difficult and often unbearable. Because you might have been on the other side of that as the victim. I'm just trying to see different pieces of this connective puzzle. If you can't see this part, what can you see? So often unbearable. Could be extended almost indefinitely. When we take such personality traits, how we come across to others, as these into shop, office, and the society of our fellows, they can do damage almost as extensive as that we have caused at home. Plenty of alcoholics are high functioning in positions of supervisory experience or interacting with others, and this stuff can be pretty funky. Having carefully surveyed this whole area of human relations and having decided exactly what personality traits in us, what disposition, our thoughts, attitudes, actions. So we're isolating exactly, precisely, specifically what these things are. It's not just generalization or some basic understanding, or I think we're nailing this stuff down because we want sobriety, peace of mind, and we don't want to spoil a later opportunity if we do try to make an amends because we missed something and it came up on short notice in the middle of it. Surprise! And I'm sorry becomes I'm sorry you're an asshole, and having decided exactly what personality traits in us injured and disturbed others, we can now commence, we can begin to ransack memory, to pick over our memory. Now, again, this is post step 5. This really accentuates that he's intending this to be this doubling down, this look at this list again before you move into the willingness phase to really understand it yourself first. As you understand it, it's amazing what opens up. And this forgiveness thing, can you see the advances in yourself? Can you see the recovery? Can you see the gains in yourself? Okay, hopefully, yes. Well, can you see it in others? Can you see the problem, how this might have evolved, what quite could have happened, what drove you? The better you can see it in yourself and in them. If you can't see it in them, it's going to be more difficult to see it in yourself, in my humble opinion. So we ransack memory, pick over our memory for the people, the additional people to whom we have given offense. So we're looking over our list to try to really see and understand the people and what's happening. Why are we doing that? To put a finger on the nearby and most deeply damaged ones shouldn't be hard to do. A soft one, maybe in treatment, for example, right? I touched on that. Bills first, step 8 in treatment. Then this is going to come back to the way I taught this step 4. Then, as year by year we walk back through our lives as far as memory will reach. Now, we're really doing a significant survey here. We shall be bound to construct, to develop a long list of people who have, to some extent or other, been affected. We should, of course, ponder, we should think about and weigh each instance carefully. There's a lot of value in these experiences, and some of them aren't going to feel good. The more I clear it up, there's things I look back, they don't feel good. They're never going to feel good. It's a measure of my progress. The better I get, the more human I become, the better human being I become, the more I care about my fellow man and woman. The more I look at that stuff, it's like, wow. And at the time, I didn't even have a clue, for example. I've been going back a lot of years. Hopefully, I've been a better person for a long time here. I've been a better person. Can I get a second opinion? We shall want to hold ourselves to the course of the direction. Okay, page 82, coming to the end. Admitting the things we have done. Meanwhile, forgiving the wrongs done us, real or fancied. We invented some of the problems. I used an example back early on, this kid that had this sexual relationship with this girl in school only to find out it all happened in his head, for example. He invented all this, the whole thing, if you recall. What we can invent in our head to cover our bad behavior. We should avoid extreme, excessive judgments. these are findings that are maybe really not workable, dead-end streets, and they're not helpful. So we should avoid extreme judgments, both of ourselves and of others involved. We must not exaggerate, don't overstate, but don't understate either. Our defects or theirs. A quiet, objective view will be our steadfast aim. It's our committed aim. Whenever our pencil falters, when we lose strength or momentum, we can fortify, we can strengthen, and cheer ourselves by remembering what AA experience in this step has meant to others. In the meetings, you've heard others, they've achieved recovery, long-term recovery and peace of mind, and you find the ones that you like and you'd like to get what they have, and bring something to the table too if they don't have it. If you've learned something about the steps and you can bring it to the table, well, why not? It is the beginning of the end of isolation from our fellows and from God. That isolation, that separation, segregation, seclusion, right, from our fellows and from God. So that completes really the first part of step 8. I hope that I've been able to help you to see that. I'm seeing it clearest ever for myself, how that works, why it works. And from here, we're going to go back to the big book, and we're going to pick up step 8 and 9. Largely, it'll be kind of intertwined, but we're going to take a look at how the second half of step 8 and step 9 support each other and run hand in hand with each other, and we'll have more examples of that advanced look as how that progresses before we do then step 9 in the step book. Well, I hope that you found this helpful and freeing, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. AA Step 8 in the step book largely focuses on the second half of the step, developing a willingness to make amends. Working the step in this way makes the bite you take much smaller and easier to manage.